Major underwriting for A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Folse was provided by the Baton Rouge Convention and Visitors Bureau. In Baton Rouge, our past is your present. Baton Rouge, authentic Louisiana at every turn. And People's Drug Stores, serving South Louisiana for generations. George and Shirley Picu are proud supporters of A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Folse. And by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting. Our mission is to tell Louisiana's story to the world. And by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism.
Where you have this architecture, history, music.
And the bittersweet cry of the blues.
Especially the blues.
There you go.
How about a dozen?
Red beans and rice.
We rolling, y'all.
We're a nation of immigrants, a country with roots in other soils. Nowhere is that more true than in the country of Louisiana. I'm Chef John Folse, inviting you to tune in to A Taste of Louisiana and a new series dedicated to our food heritage. Louisianians are descendants of 7 primary nations that have influenced every dish we cook today. Welcome to A Taste of Louisiana. Hello, how are y'all doing? Nice to have y'all with us today. How you doing, Bishop? Good to see you. Good to see you. Beautiful, beautiful. Hello, how are y'all doing? Y'all, I was sitting back in my kitchen and I heard an orchestra. So I came running out. Huh? Beautiful, y'all. Thanks so much. It's so great to have all of you here with us today as we continue to search out the unique food customs and cultural customs of this fabulous state we call Louisiana. And we're looking at the early colonial French as they were the first, other than the Native Americans who were here already, to start to build this fabulous foundation that we call the Creole state. So thank y'all so much for being here. We have a jam-packed kitchen, and of course I'm feeding all of you great food. French, it's got to be great food, right? Y'all, when we think of Louisiana's early pioneers, we think of explorers, we think of military leaders and trappers. But equal and perhaps of more importance were the missionaries, the priests and the nuns. The first sisters to arrive, the Ursulines, had the awesome task of weaving the moral fabric of a city called New Orleans. Sister Joan Marie Aycock introduces us to a bit of their early history and their huge contributions to Louisiana. When France began colonization efforts in Louisiana, they needed farm animals, tools, and food, but they also needed a good diet of religion and morality. In 1726, King Louis XV issued a royal patent authorizing a group of 12 Ursuline nuns to come to New Orleans. This group from Rouen contracted with the Company of the Indies for passage to the New World. They set sail in February 1727. Following a treacherous Atlantic crossing that brought rough seas, no seas, and pirates surrounding the ship, this little group made their way up the Mississippi River to a colony in desperate need of help.
They came basically because the colony was trying to get some religious women or men who were nurses to take care of the hospital. And they had tried the Grey Nuns, they had tried different groups, and nobody would come. Now the Ursulines were teachers. But when Father de Beauvoir said, I'm going to go, his mother, who was in Canada, had been at the Ursulines in Canada. So he said, I'm going to go to France and I'm going to get some Ursulines. And they left in January, close to February, and they didn't get here until August the 7th and 8th. But those women, I don't think I could do it today.
Through their more than 250 years in the city, they have kept journals documenting the comings and goings of famous personalities, such as Andrew Jackson, who visited following the Battle of New Orleans. A letter from President Thomas Jefferson reassures them that though the United States had recently acquired New Orleans through the Louisiana Purchase, their property would not be taken. These journals are filled with the remarkable history of New Orleans.
We keep the originals in our vault. It has, you can see Mother St. Augustine's handwriting, It's very difficult to read. It's heavy dark ink, but you can see where she signed her name. She copies the brev of Louis, King Louis the 15th. We can see the names of the nuns that she wrote, those who had come.
And they were remarkable food historians as well. In letters to her father, Sister Marie Madeleine Hachard recorded the best food accounts of French colonial Louisiana.
She was a daughter who was well loved, and her brother did not want her to come. And her father particularly was very, very fond of her. And it was hard for him to say yes, but he did. So when she got here, she started writing letters back to him. And she wanted to explain what life here was like. So that's what she went through. She went through the trip here and what they had gone through. And it gave us a great insight into what New Orleans was like in those days.
She wrote, "We live on wild beef, deer, swans, geese, and wild turkeys, rabbit, chicken, and other fowl and game of different kinds. Milk, chocolate, and coffee are much used here. A lady of this country gave us a goodly supply, and we take some every day. Wild ducks are very cheap," she said, "but we do not buy them, as we do not wish to indulge in such delicacies. Thanks to God, we have never yet lacked anything." In fact, Mother St. Augustine wrote a letter requesting property to plant a garden which was to be used to feed themselves and their boarders and to grow herbs for medicines as well. These women accomplished many firsts. They gave our country the first woman pharmacists. They were the first nuns to print their own books. They operated the first free school in America. Remarkable pioneers indeed.
There were no religious women. We are the first community of religious women in the country to come over and stay. When you think of us little old ladies here running a school, without the help of Our Lady and her Son, we'd never make it.
The old Ursuline convent on Charter Street in the French Quarter is the oldest building in the Mississippi Valley and the only one to survive from French colonial times. Though the convent is 25 years younger than the city of New Orleans, it's 25 years older than the United States. From the beginning, the Ursulines captured the hearts and saved the souls of Louisianians. What a wonderful legacy that they continue even today. Wasn't that a fabulous history? I told you were in for it today. It just absolutely, it's incredible when you think of the commitment that many of our early settlers had to make to come to this wild and I guess new land that they had absolutely no expectation of what lie ahead. And when I think of that little book, in fact, I have it right here, the book of Sister Marie Hachard, and she's writing back to her father, and I'm thinking to myself, here's a young child coming to the New World and documenting, even though she didn't know it, so much of the information that we are honored to have today. Otherwise, we wouldn't know of anything of the early colonists' food because nobody else did it. But in letters to her father, she documented it right here. And of course, I'll be cooking some of her dishes, even though she didn't give us the recipe. And you know, I'm not sure that my friends from the Ursuline convent know this, but it's a fact. And I only found it out through research with the Germans. My seventh great-grandfather, Michel Zarang, was the carpenter who built the first Ursuline convent. Wasn't that unbelievable? And I just found that out through the German, and there's a bill remaining. There was some molding work on the ceiling that was never paid. I'm just kidding. Anyway, y'all, thanks so much. And what a packed show we have today. In fact, I want to come over here because I have to introduce these folks to y'all. First of all, Bishop Robert Muench. How are you doing?
John, how are you? Good to see you.
Nice to have you. And Sister Joan Marie Aycock, nice to have you. And Sister Carolyn, the prioress, she's in charge. She's absolutely in charge. Carolyn Marie. And the orchestra, magnificent. Y'all all fantastic. Oh, what talent. And all I can do is cook. Oh. Anyway, what are we going to cook today? Well, Sister Hachard said that ducks, we have plenty, but we cannot indulge in such delicacies. Can you imagine that? Coming all the way over here, leaving their families, they may never see them again, and all of a sudden she's worried about delicacies and being too much to indulge in. Well, look what I have here. I have a wonderful duck. Of course, this isn't a wild one. And I have 2 duck breasts because this is one of the great dishes of early France. They would do marinated duck breasts that would be roasted or cooked over an open fire. And wild game is everywhere, remember, so that would have been the main thing in the larder, and wild vegetables and herbs as well. So I'm putting some basil in here. I'm putting some fresh thyme. The Ursulines actually brought with them an herb garden which has been replanted at the convent today by one of the great chefs in New Orleans. I'm putting some peppercorns in here, fresh garlic, because I'm marinating this duck breast, and the longer I leave it in here, the more flavorful it gets. A little bit Louisiana sugarcane syrup, probably honey would have been used back then, but you talk about good. Cane syrup from boiling the cane juice from our sugarcane industry. And then a little port. Port or red wine. Hey, this is French, huh? Don't blame the nuns for a little port, huh? Now this is sitting here. This is going to marinate for a little while. You know, this will, the longer you let it sit, the better. And marinate at room temperature. You can put it in the refrigerator, but take it out for about 4 hours before you actually cook it, so it gets to room temperature. Now I'm taking something that's already been marinated. I'm putting it into my skillet. You know what's in here? Bacon fat. Oh, the oil of choice, y'all. The oil of choice. Now, I'm putting its skin down into my skillet right here, and I'm going to let this saute for just a minute while I walk over here. This is going to brown nicely. It's full of flavor. Now I'm going to come over and chat with my my friends. I'm going to ask the bishop a question first. When we talk about the religious contributions in these early days, we're talking about colonial Louisiana. There was a lot of need back then, right? There's a lot of need today.
They started basically from scratch, just like you cook.
Just absolutely. And when reading the journals of Bienville, when Bienville in 1700 is saying, we need religious over here. These people are going crazy out here. There's no morals in the colony and all of this. So desperately we needed religious help here, right?
And sometimes bishops say the same thing today.
I bet.
We need help.
And Sister Joan Marie, as the archivist for the Ursulines, how is the work changed from the early journals, and you look at the work of the Ursulines over the years? I mean, has it really changed that much?
It has changed so much because you have computers and you have papers being sent over by the school by the stacks.
Right.
You can't keep track of them all. Well, so you have to decide, what am I going to say?
Well, I tell you, thank God that Sister Hashard decided to keep all those wonderful little notes, because of that, I'm cooking her duck over here today. So anyway, y'all, I have the duck going here. Now, of course, this is going to brown nicely on all sides here, and I'm going to try. Oh, look at this, how nice that is. Really, really nice. And I'm going to remove this because that's already cooked. I have some browning over here. Let me get this fire nice and hot, because this is really a quick finish dish. I browned it nicely. The cane syrup on here has really put a nice crispy crust on it. So what I do now, a little bit shallots, a little bit garlic. Now there's a lot of garlic into the pot already. I'm going to put a little bit more of that wine, y'all. You know, we didn't indulge in ducks, huh? So a little bit wine, fresh blackberries, a lot of berries and wild fruit. That's another thing in the journal. It talks about all the wonderful things that were brought over. So I'm putting the blackberries in, and then a little bit gloss down here, and it's going to be really, really fantastic. I'll just let this sit and simmer in this wonderful flavor. I would take it out, slice it, put it on a plate, serve it with something. It's any kind of vegetable, nice sweet potato would be great, but these ducks, whether wild or domesticated, would be absolutely fantastic cooked just like this. So because of that Hashard book, we know good and well many of the dishes that they actually cooked back then. So y'all, even though wheat flour was difficult to obtain in the Louisiana colony, the first New Orleans bakery opened about 1727. Think about that for a minute. The French baker who established his business under the name of Bellegarde bread had previously served as a baker in Mobile for 20 years before. Now, this is 1722. At least we know what was important back then, good, crispy French bread. I went out and talked to Tommy Adkins, who demonstrated early colonial French baking on the Louisiana frontier. Y'all take a look at this. Nothing was more important than the baking and, of course, the eating of bread in French colonial Louisiana. In fact, in Bienville's time, it was written in his journals that the Native American Indians always came a-knocking on Bienville's door after the long hunts because they knew there would be fresh bread available for them to eat. They loved French bread in those early days. Now, we're sitting here with a great French colonial bread maker, and we're going to make the simple hardtack bread of the foot soldier today, right?
Right, just an unleavened bread, something that they could take on the march that would last a long time, and soldiers didn't get the best bread. So.
but of course the commandant or Bienville himself would have had a nice loaf of bread going, a good yeast bread, a sourdough or something like that.
That's right. The white flour was reserved for officers and the higher class. Soldiers got the rye and the wheat.
Right. Now the hardtack was actually a bread that salt water and flour. That's it.
Basically salt, water, and flour.
And then it would have to be softened by soaking it into a soup or a stew, and it would be a good starchy accompaniment to the meal. So what about yeast? Was that because yeast was hard to get or come by, or was yeast pretty plentiful?
Hard to come by in the frontier. They had yeast. There are several ways of acquiring yeast. They say yeast is even in the air.
Sure.
So you could set bread up for a while and it'll rise to a degree. But the bread that the soldiers were eating here at Fort St. John certainly would not be
right.
what we have today.
In 1716, they kind of took what they could get, right?
Right.
Now, where was flour coming from? Was it coming from support of the troops out of New Orleans, or where were they getting this from?
Flour would have come from France, even Canada, come up through the New Orleans, and even from up north.
Right.
They had various types of flours.
Right. So let's go ahead and now what are we doing here? Just putting a little salt into it and.
Right. I'm adding a little salt.
Okay. Now, you were telling me that they also put potatoes or vegetables of some kind in bread, not necessarily the hardtack, but in bread in general, just to add other fillings to it, right?
Right. They were experimenting, stretching their flour.
Right.
Flour would have been pretty hard to. It didn't always get to the fort.
Right.
And they learned to stretch and experiment.
Right.
They might have used dried peas, potatoes.
Just anything to kind of fill the bread.
Right, later even corn.
Now, I noticed the hardtack, you're just going to mix that together, but I see that you do have some yeast bread here that you baked earlier. Now, this is just a good wheat bread that went into the wood ovens, and I noticed that you have some rising on the fire over there, so we're going to be able to cook that in the oven in a minute, huh?
Right, we got that set aside for the commandant. That's right.
Well, go ahead and mix that, and I'll tell you what, we're going to get that on and get that bread, and I'm going to see you at the oven out there, okay? All right, oven's ready. Bread's risen. 45 minutes, y'all, it's going to be ready. Wish you were here. Thank y'all. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful. Wonderful. Oh, what gorgeous music, huh? Oh, what a voice. What a voice. Y'all, I'm reading in Sister Hashard's book. You know, everybody kept journals back then. Bienville kept a journal and everybody kept journals. I guess it was a way of measuring time and remembering all that had passed. And Sister Hashard wrote that they didn't eat ducks too much because, you know, that was, they had to watch that. But that people would give them chocolate and fresh milk and cream, and that they really enjoyed chocolate. So I decided in her honor to do a chocolate cake for them. So that's going to be the next dish that I'm going to do. But first I have to come over here and check, because there's journals, there's all kind of wonderful things over here. And Sister Joan, I have to ask you about the journals, because y'all have kept the journals up. Now you continue to update them constantly, right?
Right.
Now in the journals, there's letters to original letters from to Andrew Jackson. There's letters from Claiborne, the governor. What's one of the most impressive things in the journal that you remember?
I think the thing that is asked for most is the letter from Thomas Jefferson. Because at the time that the United States bought the colony, the Ursulines were told, oh, you better give up, because they're going to take your schools, they're going to take everything. So they decided they would write themselves. And Thomas Jefferson sent a letter in his own handwriting, which we still have. And that said, no, he appreciated the work he was doing. He would do everything he could to forward it, and that they should keep on with what they're doing.
Now tell us, this is a prized possession of the Ursulines. I want y'all to look at this. This is little Sweetheart. Tell us about Sweetheart.
Sweetheart was in the attic of a convent in France. And this little sister was up in the attic looking for something. She had wanted to come to Louisiana, and she couldn't get permission, or they wouldn't let her come. So she saw this little statue, and I remember, it's old, up in the attic already. And that's
what year was
about
that?
1812.
1812.
And so she told Our Lady, if you will get me to Louisiana, I'll take you with me. She got to Louisiana, and that's Sweetheart.
And the statue has been in the convent ever since, and it's only left twice, to my knowledge, during the hurricanes that hit Louisiana last year. They had to take it out to protect it, and it's here with all of you today. Let's give a hand to Sweetheart. So the archives continue, and we fill them in every day.
Every day.
Now, I don't know who's in charge of the archives, but for maybe 300, 400, 500 years, it wouldn't be bad to talk about John doing duck. I mean, just a suggestion. Just a suggestion. I mean, you want to keep the best of the Louisiana history alive.
It'll go in our annals.
All right. Oh yeah, I think people in the year 3070 would like to know what John cooked today. Y'all, I'm doing a chocolate cake. Look at all the different chocolates here. I mean, there's so many different ones. I have white chocolate, dark chocolate, and of course, any one of them would work well in this dish. But I'm doing a dark chocolate in honor of Sister Marie Aycock and the Ursulines. So I have my chocolate all melted. Now I'm going to put a little butter into it. Come on. The nuns didn't have to give up everything, huh? Butter, and no such thing as bad food, y'all. You know that. And while this is melting away right here, I'm going to add into this bowl of sugar, this pot of sugar, some whiskey. Some bourbon whiskey to kind of melt the sugar, because this is going to be the sugar going into the cake. So I have the chocolate, I have the butter, I have the sugar. Now I have to come right over here and whip these eggs real fast. I have some eggs being whipped, and I'm going to add some more sugar into it, and a little bit flour. And that's going to just kind of dust around a little bit so that it kind of blends it, because this is a flourless cake. With that being done right there, I can open this and take this beater out of here and just kind of whisk all of this egg nicely in here. And then it's going to go right into this chocolate. I'm going to mix it right on in, put the egg down in there like that. I'm going to put the bourbon and sugar into it. And then it goes into an oven at about, in a springform pan, you put it in a water bath. You have to have it in a water bath to cook it for about an hour at 350. And let me get that good bourbon in here, y'all. Bourbon makes a big difference in this cake. And then, of course, oh, you better believe it, you're going to taste it. So we're going to cook this at 350 in a water bath so it doesn't scorch. And take a look at what it looks like when it's all done. Let me get this big machine down here so you can see the chocolate chocolate cake, flourless, nice and rich and dense. It's absolutely wonderful. And y'all, I have to tell the Ursulines again, thanks so much for not only being here and bringing Sweetheart this wonderful statue of the Ursuline doll right here. And then I have, in honor of Sister Marie Aycock, duck breast, pralines, another great gift of the Ursulines. It just keeps going on and on. Thank y'all so very much. And y'all, I tell you, I don't know where time goes when you're enjoying good food and good conversation with friends in the kitchen. Thanks for being here with us today, and be sure to join us next time for another great Taste of Louisiana as we continue to explore our unique food heritage. And you know what? There's none as unique.
To purchase the Encyclopedia of Cajun and Creole Cuisine by Chef John Folse, featuring more than 750 traditional recipes, a CD-ROM of the book, or a copy of the program featuring all 3 episodes of Today's Culture, call the number on your screen. Major underwriting for A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Folse was provided by the Baton Rouge Convention and Visitors Bureau. In Baton Rouge, our past is your present. Baton Rouge, authentic Louisiana at every turn. And People's Drugstores, serving South Louisiana for generations. George and Shirley Picu are proud supporters of A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Folse. And by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting. Our mission is to tell Louisiana's story to the world. And by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism.
Where you have this architecture, history, music,
And the bittersweet cry of the blues.
especially the blues.
There you go.
How about a dozen?
Red beans and rice.
We rolling, y'all.